There has been a lot of activity on Twitter on something that's happened in my part of the world. There's a newspaper where I live called The West Australian, and it had this front page of the paper. So I got it here. As you can see, there's a normal looking, stock standard, very generic white boy sitting on the front, literally a boy, sitting on front of the paper, and it's saying, in a sort of inflammatory title, "How do we stop this kid becoming a monster?" Now, most people would say just raise it normally and it won't be a monster. 99.999% of people aren't monsters. Some of us might say something like, every now and then, every human being that lives through to the age of 80 will err, sometimes because drugs, sometimes gambling problems, debts, infidelities. Sometimes people will err just to try and cross the boundaries to see what it's like, and that's part of being humans, right? However, there's an inflammatory sort of subheading that says, calls for domestic violence lessons at school to address the menace of toxic masculinity, which is just clickbait. Everyone knows that's going to fire up a certain sort of crowd, and so this is doing the rounds, and I thought we'd try and have a look into some of the context and maybe even read the article together so we can get to understand the issue better. So last year, the new left-wing government, which is doing fine, I got no problem with it, introduced 10 days of domestic violence leave. So if you're having problems at home, and you can take 10 days off at work, paid leave to try and sort your stuff out. I don't know if that's to go to hospital or to move house or to deal with the police or whatever it is you're going to do. That put this issue as literally on the front page of the paper, and has remained there for a while, but there's been quite a few instances of it. I think the next thing is true as well, and this is controversial, and I'm nervous to say it, but we've got a section of the population here, which most of you know as the Aboriginal population or Indigenous Australians. In those communities, domestic violence is occurring at 40 times the rate as it is in other communities. Now, but of course, we have the White Ribbon organisation too that's no one takes seriously, but is pushing a certain sort of agenda. And you should now be looking at a web page that says something like, "Why on earth don't men talk about domestic violence more?" Okay, so you asked me to. At the end of this, if you stick around, I'll give you my opinions on domestic violence, and that makes me more than a little bit nervous to do, which is probably why we're not talking about it, which I think is the real issue. Does the White Ribbon campaign really want me to talk about it, or does it just want me to mouth what they're saying? I won't. I'm never going to be a mouthpiece for another person. I'll always give you my true and fair opinion, but maybe people don't want my true and fair opinion. But if you watch to the end, you'll get it. So then, if you think that front page was shocking, check out the next front page. And if you've got the balls on you, the video that goes with it. This poor lady was stuck in their house, and this paranoid guy had CCTV everywhere and was monitoring her every move and her phone and everything. But that was all the evidence that got him. You want to watch some of the things that happened. I mean, it's really strong. He's stabbing her in the arm. He threw petrol on her and threatened to light her on fire. He drove her out of the bush and told her to dig her own grave, and she got in it. She genuinely thought she was going to die, and he's in prison now. But that was the front page of the paper the next day. So maybe they knew that was coming and this was a setup, or maybe it was just whatever, coincidence. So the author is this lady, Bethany Hyatt, who used to be a school teacher. So, hey, she'd know a little bit about teaching kids. Right now, she's a journalist. I checked out her socials and everything. She seems fine. I don't smell a political angle on this, and I don't think she's some Trojan horse of social justice warriorisms or anything like that. So good luck to you, Bethany. I hope your career goes well, and thanks for writing a great article. It looks as though you got some exposure with an inflammatory headline. I don't know how you feel about that as a journalist. Okay, so let's take a look at this newspaper website. This newspaper's been around for, it says 190 years. That's a long time. It's the biggest one in my state. Look, I count 20 articles on domestic violence in the last month. Clearly, it's a big focus for these guys. They're not just drumming up some sort of false issue. There must be something going on. And most of these things have something to do with someone attacking someone somewhere. So I don't think they're fabricating a bullshit issue. Clearly, they're using an inflammatory headline. So here is the article in question that everyone was a little annoyed about. Bethany Hyatt, this is the author. To their credit, they left comments on this, I believe. It reads, schools across Western Australia say they are ready and willing to take the fight in stopping the never-ending scourge of domestic violence, as campaigners focus on teaching children respect before they're old enough to know any different. I've always had a sticking point on this. You know what? You don't have to respect everyone. What do you do about someone you don't respect? But nevertheless, private schools told the West Australian that they were open to rolling out the Respectful Relationships program, which promotes positive interactions between boys and girls and is partially funded by the Department of Communities. So it's state-sponsored, but that's fine. I got no problem with that. I have done a respectful relationships course at university in the last 4 years. It was complete bollocks, and it was that ridiculous stuff about consent, like you have to ask the girl every 30 seconds whether you can keep kissing her or keep holding her hand and everything. But all right, that might be a bit cynical. I'm sure they're not going to be teaching that to 5-year-olds or something like that. The program is currently only run in 81 public schools, but its expansion across all schools was one of the key requests unveiled at last week's Family Domestic Violence Summit. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's that front page that got them so much attention. The summit was held after a spate of fatal attacks on women, all allegedly at the hands of their estranged partners and fathers of their children. Leanne Barron and the chief executive of domestic violence support charity Starrick, which runs the Respectful Relationships program. Okay, Respectful Relationships program run by a fairly esoteric organization that isn't trying to make good people, but rather trying to focus on a single issue and drive it home to the children. Yeah, that kind of does. Like, that's not about, like, the church or whatever was trying to raise good people when they gave their lessons. Clearly, I got no problem. Leanne Barron's probably a wonderful person, but it'll be focused all on one particular area. Yeah, I don't really like that much. On Monday, called for it to be expanded to independent and Catholic schools. Good luck getting into the Catholic schools. Association of Independent Schools of WA Chief Executive Chris Massey said if there was evidence to show that the Respectful Relationships program had made a positive impact, he believes schools would be open to looking at it. So I always find this stuff kind of funny. So you teach it at 81 schools, then you track those students as they go out into the world and you measure who hits their wife and who doesn't, and you work out 20 years from now that it worked, and then you roll it out 20 years from now, I suppose. He said most of its member schools were already providing programs on the topic of building respectful relationships. So there you are. It is already rolled out. Most of the schools have it. Our schools would be open to looking at any program to assist in any aspect of this area. But I wouldn't know enough about the actual program and what's involved to comment. Good on you, Chris. That's the right thing to say. A number of schools, particularly the all-boys schools, do a lot in the area of masculinity. They've all been working hard in that space. Look, in my experience, most fathers are worried about a state or federal-sponsored program in teaching boys about masculinity. It's always going to be Trojan horse for feminist stuff, if you ask me. The independent schools are always looking at cutting-edge evidence-based resources. Catholic Education WA has a program it's called Keeping Safe Child Protection Curriculum and its Child Safe Framework. So that seems better to me. It's not just tackling a single issue. It's telling kids how to be safe permanently in a more broad, far-reaching purview. Finally, the Miss Barron says it's not a panacea. Yep, too right. It isn't. And good. I like that statement. And look, there's 4 comments. I'll hit refresh. 4 comments is not very much. That's hardly anything. For all the bullshit about this article, no one's actually really bought in and read it and commented at all. So this article hasn't really gone very far. However, there is a follow-up article contributed by Bethany Hyatt was a co-author on this one. Statistics show importance of respectful relationship programs in schools. One single statistic shows why respectful relationships programs should have been rolled out in school years ago. 10% improvement in students' understanding of what actually constitutes domestic violence was revealed in a report. So what in Victorian schools, okay, Victoria in our state is like Oregon, or it's the wokest state by far, and it's particularly woke at present, so that's important. But what actually constitutes domestic violence, the actually bit bothers me, because is this like looking, or is this like raising your voice, or is this like fighting over the remote control? A proportion of students who felt that slapping or pushing a partner to cause harm or fear was a form of domestic violence increased from 70%. Okay, I refuse to believe that 70% of students believed that slapping or pushing a partner to cause harm or fear was acceptable, unless it's the following reasons. 1, it's girls that think it's okay to slap and push their boyfriend, which is probably true. The girls probably think that a playful slap or a playful push on their boyfriend is fine, and the harm or fear bit got lost. Or they're asking like kindergarten kids that have no idea what they're saying. It's a huge stretch to suggest that in 2016, 30% of kids thought it was okay to slap and push to cause harm or fear. They seem to have got that down to only 20% now. Rubbish. It's like 5%. unless they're doing some weird section of the community or something like that, right? The proportion of students who disagreed with the statement, men should take control in relationships and be the head of the household, also increased from the baseline of 54% to 58%. So there's still 42% of the population that agrees with that. I can't believe 42% of kids in school believe that the men should be in control of the relationship to the head of the household. So that last point then, that like 50% of people roughly believe that the man should be in control of the family or something like that. That could be relevant, and maybe that's the reason that Bethany's bringing this up in this article, that if you perceive in a household that the man should be in control, and again referencing the Andrew Tate sort of thing, that he might say to the female, you must stop spending money, you must do the dishes, it's time for you to stop working, it's time for you to stay home, and no, you're not allowed to go out with your friends tonight because I need to go and do something with the business or something. And that could be construed as controlling behaviour, or that could be taken to be a form of domestic violence perhaps, but nevertheless on every boat and every plane and every bus everywhere there's maybe not bus, but there's a leader, there's someone that's got to be in control. Every time I fly on a plane, I'm glad there's a captain, and the captain should be able to kick ass and take names and must be in control. And you know what, maybe a family should operate that way. I know this is a fresh and fit thing for those who know, but Myron Gaines, I've heard him say that a woman is, well, on average, women are attracted to men that are older, stronger, taller, richer, and wiser. And he says that if you show me any relationship, gay, straight, black, white, it doesn't matter, where one of the people in a relationship is those 5 things, I will show you 100 times out of 100 who the leader is, who is in control of that family. Ergo, women are filtering for a man that will naturally come into control of the relationship. And so, like, if that control translates into what feminism is calling domestic violence, that is, do what you're told and stop spending money and be home at this point in time of the night and whatever else, then this is going to get really hard. It seems that the enemy is the way that females date, to which I believe feminism would say is purely a social construction, that women have never actually wanted dominant, strong, rich, powerful men ever. That's what patriarchy has said that they must want. But there's a lot of genetic evidence in us and in almost all species of mammals and birds that women have always dated that way. But that's a conversation for another time. Okay, White Ribbon asked for it, so let's do it. What's men's opinion on domestic violence? Number one, I think you have to start with saying that we human beings have chosen to have free will, and we don't want the government to come along and pick us up and put us somewhere safe that it's designated for us, that will take control of us. We want to be able to choose to do whatever it is we want to do, to be unemployed, have a career, be a stripper, be a mother, whatever it is you want to do. And we defend that right generation after generation, so that's a fact. Almost unbelievably, what we choose to do, or what we have to do, or what we feel as though is the best thing for us, is to take a big, huge, strong one, like a lion, and a little, don't be offended by this, ladies, I mean this in a good way, and a little one, maybe a lamb, lion, lamb, put them in the same domicile together. Yeah, when there's a fight, the big one bites the little one. I can't imagine. It's not that the little one's nice, it's just the little one doesn't have teeth. So free will plus heterosexual relationships, it does seem a recipe for disaster. So what we've developed over thousands of years is something I believe in very strongly, and something that I've made a bit of a study of and consider myself reasonably knowledgeable in, is love. And that love, that is. And my formula for it is STVI, safety, trust, vulnerability, intimacy. I didn't think it up, but I read it once and it seems to fit. If you can make a person feel safe around you, they'll trust you. They can trust you, they'll choose to be vulnerable around you when they need to be. If they're vulnerable around you and no one else, you will develop intimacy. Do that and you have what I think is the foundation of like love between a man and a woman, not necessarily a parent and a child or anything else. However, the concept of love is becoming harder. I could go on for ages about this, but number one, men feel a tremendous amount of rejection from women when they're like between the ages of say 16 and 24 and trying to date but can't. 2, right or wrong, the consent culture that we have, that and this might be an exaggeration, but the female reads the male the fucking riot act about what you can and can't do, and here's a list of rules, and if you get any of them wrong, then that's a really serious thing. That's not a fertile breeding ground for safety for the guy, and you're unlikely to be vulnerable in that situation if you are a man. 3, hookup culture, I think that speaks for itself. 4, having effeminate men that don't know how the dishwasher works. And you know, to those adverts, I know this is beside the point, but damn it, men, work out how the goddamn dishwasher works. It's not that hard. it's probably true that a lot of guys aren't like that. That's not just a sexist stereotype. But something like effeminate men that beg for sex plus masculine women that demand control of a relationship, again, isn't creating a hell of a lot of love between men and women. So it's plausible, especially with the rise of feminism and consent culture, that what heterosexual relationships presently are is something like each party trying to control the other. I don't think I need to go into this. You've seen it your whole dating life. If you're straight, I don't know about gay people. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Let me define control as if you, then I will. I mean, that just is what consent culture is. Like, that's what kids are being taught at school, that like, if you do the wrong thing, you'll get in big trouble. That's what that is. I think let's take a relationship. The woman publicly shames the man by denigrating him in front of all of his friends. Everyone's seen that and everyone hates it, right? Let's take the other way around. Let the man belittles the woman in public. People that are in love aren't doing that to each other because they want to be able, it's self-interest. You want to be able to return to that place of vulnerability so that you can be intimate, because to be intimate is fantastic. It's so special. It's so rare. But you'll sully the waters of vulnerability if you behave that way. I think we can get rid of a lot of domestic violence if we get rid of controlling relationships. Now, no one's just going to get rid of their controlling habits and then just like drift out into a void and they have no idea whether their spouse is coming home, whether the income's coming in, whether their kids are really theirs, whether or not she's or he's sleeping with everyone else. People want some safety. In the absence of control, it has to be love. I think we've got the solution. I know this sounds corny as hell, but the solution is that STVI love thing. But we've got some big social developments in our lives. I've mentioned a few already that are getting in the way of men and women truly, genuinely falling in love. A masculine man who makes a woman feel safe, a feminine woman who makes a man feel safe, trust, vulnerability. I think once you get rid of the examination of controlling behavior, then people will be more receptive to then say, all right, domestic violence, it's not going to have anything to do with me. Because quite frankly, now I think that both men and women look at the anti-domestic violence things and think, what, I can't tell her not to spend any more money? Damn it, I've done that this week. Or the female says something like, I can't belittle him in public. Ooh, geez, I did that recently. If you can get rid of that sort of stuff, then people will be less sensitive about it and ready to talk about it. Which the next bit's simple but impossible. What the fuck are you going to do about drugs, long-term unemployment, alcoholism, mental illness? What are you going to do about, like, when you read the really bad domestic violence one, like dousing someone in petrol, I mean, that's a sick person. This is the next bit. If you look at the terrible like imagine taking someone and punching them repeatedly in the head till they're dead. Like, that's a person that's lost their mind, or that is a person that is under some sort of psychosis or some sort of extreme paranoia, or that's someone that's got some real trauma in their life. Packaging that all up and saying, men did it, that's not going to work well to, I'm not going to say 50% of the population, I'm going to say 90% of the population, because most women love men, right? So I don't think that that's the way to say it, but we're so scared to say it's a problem of mental illness, because as soon as you do that, who with a mental illness will come forward, right? It's a problem of drugs. Yeah, damn straight, but no one, like George Bush Sr. couldn't fix drugs in America, and we've been trying to fix it ever since, and we haven't. Alcoholism, damn it, you can buy it at the shop, and long-term unemployment, that's factored into capitalism. So that whole bit's really hard. So in summary, it would appear we have free will, men and women are going to get together. In the absence of love, we'll control each other. In the presence of love, we don't need to control each other. Love should fix it. Besides that, no one wants to tackle the drugs, alcohol, mental illness debacle that's out there. And hey, once you cross that threshold into being a meth head, I don't know how you fix that from there. And I don't know that we ever will. That's long enough. Thanks very much for watching. As I always say, hit like and subscribe if you want, but if you don't, that's fine. I really just make these for me. But I do thank you for watching, and have a good day. Bye.